thought we had two teams battling it. Offense wasn't great, but I thought teams stayed with it. Both teams stayed with it, battling into overtime. I thought it was a physical game. I thought both teams played physical. I thought the difference was our late game execution. We turned it over twice in overtime. We have been taking care of the basketball pretty well for the most part. I thought, our late game execution with that, not having the inability to get the ball inside the Donnie, where he had to step out at the end. I thought that was the difference of us not being able to execute late, to at least try to give ourselves a chance to win it or put it into second overtime. Questions?
About that one late position there in the overtime when things looked like getting confused, did you think about getting a timeout from those on the sideline?
No, I thought we would get a shot off because it was a pretty simple play, and the guy that we wanted to get it into, I thought he would get it in there, but he didn't.
Who was that?
I thought Nate could get the ball into Donnie, but he didn't. I thought he was open for a little bit. I thought he could have gotten the ball.
You thought like a pass was there at a certain time and he just throw it at that?
We had a couple of passes at the end that were, not great passes. You can't have that. That's what I mean, late game execution. You can't have that. You got to be able to step to the ball. You got to be strong. You got to be able to get the ball into situations, into the places where we need to get into, and we didn't do that.
Adrian, JJ averaged almost 18 a game last year, and in the last 3 games he scored a total of 4 points. Like, what is going on with him, do you think?
I don't know. It's been, like you said, the last couple of games, it's been hard for him to get going. Obviously, teams are, defending him a certain way. We got to try to get him some early looks early. We try to get him some early looks early, but, as the game goes on, teams are doing a pretty good job defending them. So, that's all I really have.
Is there something specific they're doing in that defense against JJ?
I mean, he's a guy that gets a lot of attention. And right now, we all know that he's not shooting the ball particularly well. So, I think it's very hard when he sees double gaps. We got to try to get him out in transition a little bit more. For the defense can't load up, but it's been difficult, especially towards the end of the season. A little bit more half court. Teams are really getting back in transition and loading up. So again, some of it is defense and some of it is just him struggling a little bit.
Coach, why do you think this team is capable of making the necessary run next week in Charlotte?
At the end of the day, I think we've made progress as far as being able to be in games. It's been execution. You take away a handful of games, we've had a chance to, at some point, take the lead or have a chance to come away with wins. And even in our losses, a couple of close losses. So that gives me the hope that we can string it together, in a neutral site with our guys very motivated to get some things done.
ACC tournament coming, Red, but how do you assess a second straight losing season in the regular season?
I think the biggest thing when you ask that, and if I had to assess it, I would say it's been some progress. And when I say that, obviously not from the record standpoint, I think the progress has been made since I've been here just with the new dynamic of college basketball. And, we had to embrace that. And in embracing that, for me, each year, I think my first year, I think the whole league didn't embrace it. And, we had a really good year. I thought the second year, the new college basketball, kind of people caught on. And, last year, to be honest with you, we had some injuries and, we couldn't really compete at that level, and I thought this year we competed better. We were able to pull out a couple of games that we couldn't, win in my first 2 years. So again, it's been slow progress, not the progress that that we all want to see. But in this game right now, this is different. And everybody writes about it, and it's a real thing. And I think we were slowly progressing in the right direction. That's what I would say. I thought we were slowly progressing in the right direction. Obviously, in today's world, patience is very thin. So, You know, that's it. You know, so that's how I would say that. That's how I would address that question. I think progress has been made. Obviously, not in the win columns like we would want, but I knew that once I took over, this is going to be an adjustment just because everything changed. So.
Jay, you just used the phrase their patience is thin these days. There's been speculation over your future. I was wondering what your thoughts were, especially maybe today.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I was trying to win a game today, and, again, that's, this is college athletics, this is sports, so I only could worry about today. I can't get ahead, and, the speculation, that's part of it. Speculation, rumors, this, that's part of it. But the only thing I can do is focus on the team and try to get us ready to win games. And, that's all I've been really focusing on, is trying to get our guys ready. And that's about it.
One more. You talked in the past about having to meet an orange standard. Do you feel the standard has been met in these 3 years, and what's been missing in doing that?
I think when you talk about the standard, obviously from a win column, I would say we probably did it once. That was my first year. The last 2 years, from a win standpoint, has not been. But when I did my press conference and I talked about the orange standard and getting back to it, it was different. It was a different set of rules. It was a whole different thing, right? And I mean analytics and everything, NIL, all of that stuff, right? And I probably should have really peeled that back a little bit more. And the standard for what I grew up and what I played with, that's different now. It's a lot of things that need to work together in unison to get to that standard. The way college athletics is, right? It's a change, right? So, in particular, I know everybody's gonna think I'm talking about NIL. Yes, NIL is a part of it, right? But it's also the transfer portal, right? That's a part of it. When we had the standard, we were able to retain and develop and have guys, and every coach, I'm not saying anything new, every coach is going through that, right? So, getting back to the standard, is going to be a little bit more challenging than we all, thought it would be or it is, because everything has changed. Thank you.